What's going on, y'all? It's your boy Deej from Deej Sports. Apologies that it's been a while since I dropped my last video. Obviously, my mock draft was the last video I had. Just like I said, a lot of personal stuff, college, and just some other things. But I'm excited. Free agency has come and gone. Mock draft, post free agency. I've already started doing some mock drafts. Post free agency edition. We've seen a lot of great moves. A lot of top free agents come off the board. Um, One of my favorite free agent signings that I wanted to actually talk about before I start to this video, by the way, we're going to be talking about, in my opinion, my top five winners of free agency, the top five teams who I think really scored big and are really going to improve. Obviously, as long as they stay healthy, but I think are going to improve for next year. But yeah, I think one big signing that I actually really loved in my opinion, was the Seahawks signing not Gino, but signing Sam Darnold. When you look at it here, man, I know Gino. To me, I think Gino is a better quarterback than Sam Darnold. But the fact that Seattle, instead of paying Gino anywhere between 40 to 50 potentially $1 million that Gino wanted a huge raise, right? He wanted a 40+ million contract, and the Seattle Seahawks weren't willing to do that. They were willing to pay him like 35. When that didn't come to terms, he requested trade, and obviously they trade him. They get a third round pick, right? The third round pick is a really pretty significant draft pick, right? Especially for a 35-year-old starting quarterback who is a top 15 player or a top 15 player at his position. Sam Darnold, and two, Sam Darnold's coming off a really great year. He had a top five, statistically great season last year. He played very well for the Minnesota Vikings. Obviously, his last two games were not great, but again, just put himself in a great position to get paid, and he got paid 3 years, $100.5 million, 55 million fully guaranteed. Not to mention, too, now, yes, DK Metcalf, they did trade DK Metcalf. They're gonna have to build around Sam Darnold. But the good news is Seattle, one thing about Seattle that they've done quite well is draft well. They do a pretty really good job drafting well. Their players may not develop their first year. They do, and a lot of those players do. Seattle does a great job drafting. So the fact that they got a second round pick and a seventh round pick for DK Metcalf, and they got a third round pick for Geno Smith. You trade a wide receiver who's now getting paid top five at his position, who's probably not worth that much. And instead of paying him all that money, you trade him for significant draft capital, a second round pick. So now you have what, two second round picks, a first round pick, and you have two third round picks and multiple other picks. Like the Seattle to me is low key cooking. So obviously they're gonna have to build their team around Sam Darnold, but he's in a good system. Grant Kubiak comes from San Francisco, who was with Darnold. So, and the offense is pretty much the same that he's going to be asked to run in Seattle. So that was just one of my favorite signings. And he's only getting $55 million guaranteed. It's the Baker Mayfield contract from a few years ago. So I really like the contract. So that's my opinion there. But here are my top five teams who won free agency. I got my notes ready to go. Let's get started. So the Minnesota Vikings are my number one winner in free agency. We're gonna start from like one to five. I know probably it'll be better to start from the bottom, but we're gonna start from the top. And the Vikings to me, and shout out my boys Cliff and Khalik, who are Vikings fans. I'm sure they're gonna love, if they watch this video, they'd appreciate it. But to me, Will Fry, the Vikings to me won free agency. For me, beefing up and I have some categories, I have some phrases that I want to put. Beefing up the trenches. Minnesota beefed up the trenches. One of my biggest things with Minnesota was, to me, I understand Sam Darnold had a great year last year. He played very well, but in my opinion, let Sam Darnold go get paid elsewhere. And you just drafted JJ McCarthy in the top 10 last year. I understand he's coming off an injury, but still, in my opinion, he landed in the perfect position still of any quarterback in this draft. Now I know Jaden Daniels completely was the best quarterback in this draft. Bo Nix is also number two. Michael Penix, I think, played very well. This could be a really great QB draft class too. Um, seeing where everything is, but JJ McCarthy is in the best place in my opinion. He's around the best coaching. He's got a coach of the year as his head coach, and they're beefing up the trenches on both sides of the ball, and they brought back some key players. Will Fries, guard, one of the top free agents from the Indianapolis Colts, got a 5-year, $88 million deal. He only played 5 games last year, but in those 5 games had an 87 PFF grade, 75 run blocking, 85 pass blocking, or run blocking, 75 pass blocking. when healthy, and hopefully he can, get back healthy. He had a broken leg last year, some a pretty nasty injury, but still, he's expected to be fully ready to go this year, and he's well worth, in my opinion, the risk and the gamble. And again, when he's on the field, really good player. And that was the biggest thing for Minnesota. I think the biggest thing for them was improving the interior of their offensive line. Also, Christian Darrisaw's coming off injury. He's suspected to come back and return this year. So getting him back is huge. He's their best offensive tackle and player, one of their top players on the team, and he is one of the best left tackles in the game. Still quite young too. So hopefully they can get him back. And you have Brian O'Neill, another really good starter and one of the best right tackles in the game. But beefing up the interior was very important. And they signed two Colts offensive linemen. They also, not only did they bring Will Fries from Indianapolis, they brought over veteran center Ryan Kelly, 2 years, 18 million. He has only allowed 10 pressures and over 120 pass blocking snaps. That is quite impressive. That is quite very impressive, man. He is um one of the best, underrated centers in the game, and they only got him on a 2 year, $18 million deal. Or in his career, I think in his 10-year career, he's only allowed like 10 total pressures and pass protection. It was a stat, something like that. But he's been very, he's been a mainstay on the offensive line. Byron Murphy, 6 interceptions last year, had a really good season playing both inside and outside for their defense. That Brian Flores defense flourished. He was on coming off his best season after playing on that 2 year contract he signed after leaving Arizona, 3 years, 66 million. So among the top at his position. He did give up a lot of receiving yards last year, but still made tons of plays, made up for it with just making game changing plays. Absolutely. 6 interceptions, ton of pass breakups, very productive player. Aaron Jones, they brought him back. 1,000-yard rusher from last year. When healthy, Aaron Jones is still a productive running back in this game. 2 years, $20 million. Jonathan Allen from the formerly of the Washington Commanders, who was a first round pick, in my opinion, one of the top defensive tackles when healthy in the game. They got him after he was released from the Commanders, signed him to a 3 year, $60 million deal. And I like this signing too, an underrated signing, Isaiah Rogers, 2 years, 15 million. Um, Guy who when you need him to step up and play, he's a really good, really solid corner. So the guy too, in my opinion, when he was with the Indianapolis Colts, he was set to, in my opinion, to really take on a really important role as a starter, but he got suspended for a gambling issue for a year, and it looked like his career was pretty much in going on the downhill. But he found, his footing again back with Philadelphia as a backup, won a Super Bowl, had to play some key games, had to step in due to some injuries. But, Isaiah proved last year, both special teams and also when he needs to start. In my opinion, he can start in the NFL. He has inside outside flexibility. He also has special teams ability as well as a returner and playing special teams as well. I think um, I'm glad to see him get paid, and I think he'll be a great fit in that Brian Flores defense. They also brought in a potential swing tackle and Justin Skule, and they brought back their longtime safety guy who's defying father time, Harrison the Hitman Smith, on a 1 year, $10.25 million deal. So Minnesota, man, beefing up the trenches, building around JJ McCarthy, protecting him, and you've already got, in my opinion, the a top two receiver, Justin Jefferson, another good receiver in Jordan Addison. You have TJ Hawkinson. Um, in my opinion, in the draft. I think just adding some safety depth because they did lose Cam Bynum in free agency. So just continuing to add some secondary depth at both at corner and safety will, in my opinion, solidify this team. And then, in my opinion, they're a contender. Even with JJ McCarthy coming off injury, I think JJ McCarthy being able to sit actually last year, despite being hurt, I think will, it'll take him a little bit, but I think once he gets acclimated, he's going to be really good for the Minnesota Vikings. I expect him to succeed with them. In my number two, I got the Washington Commanders, just building around an elite quarterback on a rookie deal, right? Jaden Daniels took that Washington team with not a lot of elite talent to the NFC Championship game. And obviously, they got their tails kicked by Philadelphia. But Jaden Daniels coming off a Rookie of the Year season, potential MVP candidate, in my opinion, man. Jaden Daniels, love him, man. He's just such a great player, such a dynamic talent, and elite talent. So this is what, obviously, look, they trade a 5th round pick for Debo Samuel. Is he, he's not, obviously, he's, He's a bit injury prone and also hasn't, had a great year since his all pro year in 20, I think, what, 2020 that was. But still, get the ball in his hands, run after catchability, gadget, Swiss Army knife player. He, I think, is a great fit in the Cliff Kingsbury offensive scheme. You trade for Laramie Tunsil. In my opinion, I don't know what the heck the Texans are doing. I think obviously they just want to move in a different direction. In my opinion, it's kind of a win-win trade because they did get a lot of they got a lot of significant draft capital back. So they get a fourth. The Commanders get a fourth round pick and Laramie Tunsil, one of the best left tackles, best pass blocking left tackle in the NFL, no doubt. Is a bit he's a bit inconsistent in run blocking, but still he's not terrible. He's not a liability there. But Laramie Tunsil, his trade value needs to be studied. Seeing what his trade value, remember Miami, they were just completely cooking with the draft capital they got from the Laramie Tunsil trade, when they traded him to Houston, and now Houston trades him to the Commanders, and Houston gets pretty much that same draft capital they traded for him back. His trade value needs to be studied because that is crazy amounts of capital. So obviously trade, they get a fourth round pick, the Commanders do, and then they send a third and a seventh in 2025, this year's draft, to Houston, and then they'll send a second and a fourth in 2026. So Houston, they are also accumulating more draft capital, right? They got a lot of draft capital from in the Deshaun Watson trade. Now they're getting a lot more back, especially what they pretty much had to trade for Laramie Tunsil for at the old regime. So that's great there. They bring back Zach Ertz on a 1 year, $6.25 million deal, 9.9 million max. Clutch. Zach Ertz were kind of resurged as still, even though he's getting up there in age, he's still a proven tight end. He's one of the most clutch tight ends and made clutch plays yet again in the playoffs. Remember, he did the same thing in Philly, did the same thing with the Washington Commanders, so they're rewarding him and bringing him back. They also signed a pair of Commanders, former Patriots, Dietrich Wise. To me, they got him on the cheap, 1 year, $5 million, productive defensive lineman who can play inside and outside. Noah Igbenogany, former considered bust, right? Draft bust. He, finds a new home in Washington, played pretty well in the time he got. They also upgraded from Benjamin St. Juste, in my opinion, signing veteran corner Jonathan Jones. Also could play outside, could play inside as well. They signed a former first-round pick, Javon Kinlaw, to a big 3 year, $45 million deal, but he has familiarity with the front office. One of their front office members worked with the 49ers and drafted Javon Kinlaw, so there's a relationship there. And bringing him in, they're taking I think too, this is pretty much a gamble on a former first-round pick who can really, impact their defensive line. Plus, Jonathan Allen replacement, and he'll pair up with Johnny Newton, their young defensive tackle they have as well. They re-signed also Johnny Bates or John Bates, 3 years, 21 million, $25.5 million max. So just building around Jaden Daniels on a rookie contract is just, you're seeing that, and they still have a first round pick. They've got some more picks. They've got a second round pick. They still have plenty of assets and even still more money to go improve around Jaden Daniels, and that's the point. Taking advantage of a quarterback who's on a rookie deal, and now I think the question is, right, can Jaden Daniels with an improved roster around him kind of lead that, right? Look, teams are going to improve. You're going to see, obviously, right. It's not going to be lead them to the NFC Championship every single year, but or maybe he could. We'll see. But you know, seeing him how he was able to lead this team, right? That wasn't as talented, but still good enough, and you lead them to the NFC Championship. Now with an improved roster, who I think can compete with Philly, can you take them back, and can you potentially beat Philly or a Los Angeles? I think that's right. What can Jane Daniels do with now the improved talent around him? I think too. I think for Jane Daniels, the biggest thing too is improving, right? Don't be one of these quarterbacks who has sophomore slumps, right? Because you're seeing a high rate of sophomore slumps for quarterbacks. If you're Jayden Daniels, focus on improving because teams are now going to figure out how to stop you. So worry about getting better. And I think Jayden Daniels, knowing how he watches a film and like with the VR and stuff, he's gonna, in my opinion, likely improve and have that sophomore resurgence and build on his rookie of the year campaign. Excuse me, needed a drink there. All right, number three, I got the New England Patriots. Look, they had a lot of money to spend, and I think I call this the Vrabel effect. Mike Vrabel, to me, I have no idea why the Titans let him go. I have no idea why the Titans fired Mike Vrabel, and I have no idea to this day why they let go of Derrick Henry, and I have no idea to this day why they traded AJ Brown for Traylon Burks. Yes, Traylon freaking Burks. I have no idea what the heck they're doing, but you know, it is what it is. Mike Vrabel returns to New England, former longtime player there, one of the best linebackers in the game at that time. Versatile player too, played some offense and caught a lot of touchdowns from Tom Brady. So now he returns to New England as their coach, and they made moves, right? Milton Williams, Super Bowl champion, impactful defensive lineman on Philadelphia. In a rookie year, former third round pick, gets a huge 4 year, $104 million contract, 26 million per year, 51 million fully guaranteed, 24 tackles, 8+ tackles for loss, 5 sacks. Expect those numbers to improve and go up this year under Mike Vrabel. Harold Landry, former Tennessee Titan, played with Mike Vrabel, reunites with him in. He was just released by Tennessee, had a great year, 71 tackles, 10+ tackles for loss, 9 sacks, productive edge rusher. Um, 3 years, 43.5 million, 48 million, and maximum value in incentives, 26 million fully guaranteed. Add some more beef up front, and obviously, improving New England's pass rush, and you pair him with a young Christian Barmore. Christian Barmore's coming off kind of an injury riddled season. Hopefully, I think he's fully recovered from his blood clot situation, because I know he dealt with that on and off last year. But Christian Barmore, when healthy, one of the best defensive tackles in the game. They got Morgan Moses, to me, on a pretty good contract, 3 years, $24 million, improving the offensive line. They got Michael Winu. I know they cut David Andrews, but they've got some. They've also got what's his name? Something Strange, Connor Strange, or something like that. Or I'm not sorry. I'm sorry, not something like that, but whatever his name is, I can't remember what his name is, but I can't remember his name. But they have another offensive line, and they can continue to improve the offensive line. I'm hearing too that they could potentially go after Cam Robinson. They have look, the Patriots had over 120 plus million in cap space. They've got cap space to kill. They are trying to improve their team. They also signed Carlton Davis to a 3 year, $20 million deal that pairs him with Christian Gonzalez, one of the top young corners in the game. Robert Spillane also adds to the front seven, 3 years, 37.5 million dollars. Raiders productive linebacker who played very well, also played with the Pittsburgh Steelers, productive linebacker over the last several years. And they signed Mac Hollins, who made some big plays, really elite run blocker, but also to when needed to go out there and make some plays. He made some key plays in the playoffs, especially versus the Chiefs. Dude is absolutely just a beast and a warrior. And in my opinion, they're not done yet. Cooper Cup is still a free agent. He's a free agent. I'm hearing though that not the Steelers, but the Seahawks, my Jaguars could potentially go after him, even though it was also reported they're not expected to. The Chargers, the Seahawks. So and the Patriots, right? So we'll see where Cooper Cup lands. Amari Cooper is also another potential option. I think New England, they have been trying for years to try to add more wide receiver talent to their team. And I think too, they should be able to get one of these guys. Stephon Diggs could be another option that they go after, right? Vrabel, I'm sure, knows him very well. So we'll see what they do. You want to add more talent around Drake May. They've improved the defense. Now you want to improve your offense too, because you gotta, improve your offense. So that'll be something there. But I think too, having all that cap space, building up the defense, adding, I think they could be a bit, they could even move up higher by adding one of these veteran wide receivers who are still on the open market. Number four, I have the Denver Broncos. They could be even higher, but Denver, in my opinion, same thing, right? Building around your young quarterback on a young deal, on his rookie deal. Evan Ingram, look, y'all know I love me some Evan Ingram. I hate to see him leave Jacksonville, but wasn't a scheme fit anymore. So he goes somewhere where he is a perfect fit, and it is the Denver Broncos. And one thing I learned and the reason why he's a perfect fit for the Denver Broncos is, right, they needed a receiving tight end. Obviously, Denver, obviously, Cortland Sutton was productive, really good last year. Marvin Mims made some key plays for them, Vele and Troy Franklin, but their tight end group was not good at all. They didn't have a tight end who had 200 receiving yards. This is according to Nico Elite Takes on TikTok. So, biggest thing is getting a top tight end at his position, one of the best receiving backs. And one thing he's going to do is play that joker role, right? That joker role. And what that is that's a role that Sean Payton has that um, Marquise Colston played, that big tall weapon who goes up in the middle of the field and makes big plays. Jimmy Graham was another guy, was the same way as well. Jimmy Graham, and you remember how elite Jimmy Graham was the best tight end or top three tight end at his time in the early 2010s. So you had him there. They had some other, what's the name? New Orleans had some other players who kind of played this role too. Jarrett Cook was another guy I think too fit pretty well in that role as well. Was productive. So Evan Ingram, productive player, really good fit, and I think you'll see him be a great fit with Bo Nix um, in this play as well. Sorry about that, by the way. LOL, they signed my namesake guy, big fella DJ Jones, the defensive lineman, formerly of the 49ers. He's now re signing with the Denver Broncos. So continuing to keep those trenches fortified up front, right? All about the trenches, right? Starts from the trenches. 3 years, $39 million, productive defensive lineman. And these were the top two right here, bringing in two key 49er contributor defenders. Dre Greenlaw, 3 years, $35 million. Hate to see it. I think he only played like one game last year. He came back, played well, but then got hurt again. But San Francisco, right? They're getting ready to pay Brock Purdy a lot of money, and they let go of a lot of key starters. So we'll see how their team is looking next year. But Dre Greenlaw, 3 years, 35 million. Look, when this dude is healthy, when this dude is right, and when he's on the field, this dude is a certified athlete at the linebacker position, sideline to sideline linebacker, elite in coverage, makes game-changing plays, a huge contributor. He's a big reason why that San Francisco 49ers defense was great. And in my opinion, if he doesn't get hurt in that Super Bowl versus the Kansas City Chiefs a couple years ago, in my opinion, they probably win that Super Bowl because that's how important Dre Greenlaw is to that defense. They've got Fred Warner, but having him alongside him, Dre Greenlaw, a healthy Dre Greenlaw at his best, man, he's one of the best linebackers, young linebackers in the game. They also signed Talanoa Hufanga, a terrific hybrid safety from also formerly of the San Francisco 49ers. This was a guy who was a former All Pro and had, I think, 4 to 5 interceptions. He was a game changer. He was like Troy Polamalu out there just making plays. He tore his ACL, I think, a year or two ago. Was coming back from that last year. Also played minimal games last year, but when fully healthy. Also, Denver needed to improve their secondary in the back end. He now pairs with Brendan Jones. And I think having those two hybrid type guys who can play in the box, who can play deep in safety, and it can also allow Brenton Jones to play more in the box. He can play Hufanga up top in the back end of the secondary. I think it'll really improve their secondary for sure. And now PJ Locke can be more of your depth, come off the bench if you deal with injuries, he can be that safety for you. And then signing Matt Part, who can be your swing tackle in case you deal with injuries. You re-signed Garrett Bowles last year. They have Mike McGlinchey. Part, in case you deal with some injuries at one side, he can be your swing tackle. So in my opinion, just building around Bo Nix on that rookie deal. And right, you're seeing another guy here, Caleb Williams, right? In my opinion, and then number 5, my 5th winner of free agency is the Chicago Bears. Same thing, they're beefing up the trenches on both sides of the ball, offensive line, defensive line, and you're protecting Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams was sacked 64 times last year, 64. And also too, just the coaching and everything was bad. That's why you bring in, right, Ben Johnson you bring in a Ben Johnson from the Detroit Lions, the top head coaching candidate on the open market. You bring in a Dennis Allen, who's a really good defensive mind and great defensive coordinator. And then just, the biggest thing, right, improving the trenches. They trade a 4th-round pick for Joe Tooney. Expect him to get a contract extension. One of the best guards in the NFL. 4-time Super Bowl champion and veteran and Pro Bowler. Really great offensive guard. They trade for Jonah Jackson, one of the best offensive linemen when he's healthy. They only traded a sixth round pick for him. They traded that to the Rams. Same thing when healthy. He was really good last year. Had one of the top PFF grades at his position as well. He only played, I think, 4 to 5 games due to injury, but when healthy, and also has positional versatility, can play guard or can play center. So positional versatility there. They signed center, the best center in the open market, Drew Dalman, and wanted the Jaguars to sign him, but they didn't get him. 3 years, 42 million, second highest paid center in the NFL. Only played 9 games, but still productive. Top 5 in total PFF grade at his position, run blocking and pass blocking grade. Had a top 5 run blocking grade, and I think he's even better than what PFF states in pass protection as well. And again, just fortifying the trenches offensively and improving that interior. And you've got Braxton Jones and Darnell Wright, 2 young, good tackles on the edge. Now, I think fortifying, having a complete 5 up front, and you do have Caleb Williams also on a rookie contract. It's very important, and you're going to see, in my opinion, an improved Caleb Williams, a better version of Caleb Williams, and a more protected Caleb Williams next year. They also signed 2 key players on the defensive side of the ball. Grady Jarrett, I hate to see it. I'm a fan of the Falcons as well. So seeing Grady Jarrett leave Atlanta, it was tough, but still, he gets immediately, like 2 hours after getting cut by the Falcons, he gets a 3-year, $43.5 million deal from Chicago. He is going to improve the trenches and really open things up for Montez Sweat. And then they signed Dayo Odeyingbo from the Colts, productive, really good edge rusher from the Colts, 3 years, $48 million. This was a guy who could have went drafted higher in the draft 4 years ago, but he suffered a torn Achilles. He came back for that and really became a productive player. I think he had over 20 plus tackles for loss, 30 plus sacks in his career. He's a really good player. And also now you pair him with Montez Sweat and you got Grady Jarrett. They've got Javon Dexter, defensive tackle on the rise. So now you're front 4. And now this allows Chicago, in my opinion, who I have mocked to go get a Omarion Hampton to get that true RB1 in the draft and, get that true running back, that now you have in my opinion, a really good roster. And I think on paper, they're probably the second best team on paper in their division other than the Vikings. So, and those are my top 5 winners of free agency. Let me know who your top 5 winners are in the comment section below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Y'all stay blessed out there and stay easy, man. Peace out.